At the gathering of WealthCounsel here in Chicago, we visit with Richard Roller, an attorney from Bettendorf, Iowa, who brings an interesting background to this profession. You've been a farmer. You've been a farm equipment dealer. Take me back to that. I want to learn about where your farm was and when you were an equipment dealer.
Well, I was fortunate that I was the fourth generation on a century farm in northwest Iowa. During the time period that I farmed at that farm, I was originally working with my uncle. I worked for the John Deere dealership in town to get extra income during that time period, and at the young age of 57 years old, he passed away stepping out of his shower one night, which his succession plan was zero, which then put me on the farm with a great deal of debt and not much assistance. But I continued to farm it for 14 years after his death. But the early 80s convinced me that I would no longer continue farming probably as a living, and which sent me back to law school at the University of Iowa, and here I am today.
That was a terrible time in Iowa and Illinois and other parts of the Midwest, wasn't it, during the 80s?
The 80s was quite a devastation, I think, to rural Iowa, rural America, probably all over. I look back on our community, probably half the people my age are no longer there in that community, and that was the start of it. That was probably the impetus of why people left the farm.
So he was 57 years old, no estate plan. Oh, I do have to ask you a question that a listener sent to me when he heard I was going to be discussing this subject. He said, do I have to have a will and an estate plan? How different are they, and do I need them both?
Well, the answer is that the will is incorporated probably in the estate plan, and yes, you do need to have them both. A complete estate plan is that you want to have a procedure in place to transfer your assets from one generation to the next generation efficiently and as easily as possible, all the while making sure that you're paying the least amount of taxes, that you're protecting it from creditors, that you're protecting it from predators, and you're also maybe making sure that it doesn't disqualify you for any government benefits.
Where do I start? Who do I talk to first if I have nothing in place?
Well, I think the place to start is with your attorney. You're probably also working with an accountant, and you may also have a financial advisor. The best thing to do is put all three of those gentlemen in the same room, or women, whoever they may be, and let them collaborate on getting a plan together for you. In our office, that's exactly what we do. We try to bring in their accountant, bring in their financial advisor. If they have none, we may recommend it to get some, because those are the people that when we get them all together, we'll make sure we run the farm as efficiently as possible from a tax standpoint, make sure their investments are taken care of, and I take care of the legal end of it, making sure that we do get this plan in place and it's going to work for their family.
What's the toughest thing to convince people they need to do this, even if they're young with a family? How do you convince them?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult with farmers in particular. That farmers like to see tangible results. They're used to putting something in the ground, nurturing it, watch it grow, and take something back off that land. As opposed to estate planning, they push money across the table and they don't necessarily see those benefits. Their children may see those benefits, but they're not going to. So it is a tough sell for them. But the thing to do is to point out to them is what happens if they don't do the planning, and that usually is enough to say, yes, this is what I need to do for my family.
Visiting with a farm realtor today, Ray Brownfield, he said there is real concern in the farming community about the end of this year and the estate tax and capital gains, and he has some people who are asking him to get that farm sold by the end of the year. How much of a concern is the possible tax change to you as a planner?
Well, I think the answer is if you're thinking of selling, this is probably going to be the year to sell. We're probably at the lowest tax rates, the best, as people say, we've got the best tax bargain we probably have had in years. So yes, if they're thinking of selling, I wouldn't wait until next year to make that decision. But again, that's a decision of theirs whether they sell at all. But.
And the estate tax, some people say that we ought to do away with it completely. Others say we should keep it at high levels. Do a lot of farmers lose their farms because of the estate tax?
Well, I go back to when I was on the farm. I remember when the estate tax was being banded around about whether we should do away with it or reduce it or increase the limits or the exempt levels. I know the Farm Bureau made the statement at one time and said, well, I never know anybody who ever lost a farm because of estate taxes. Well, that may be true. But there are some farms that probably definitely were put under stress because of estate taxes. Farmers will do what they need to do to protect the farm, but I'm maybe a victim of that because of not planning. It wasn't due to estate taxes, but it was due to other circumstances that put the stress on me that I'm no longer on the farm. But I think, yes, estate taxes definitely, if it goes to $1 million. Well, in Iowa, we're seeing northwest Iowa, our farm probably would bring $5,000 an acre. It doesn't take too many acres before you're over $1 million. And so without planning, you start to pay a 41 to 55% tax on anything over $1 million, it's going to hurt.
Are there things you can do as a landowner to mitigate that estate tax?
Well, taxes are generally all voluntary, and I don't mean to be facetious when I say that, but if you don't plan, you pay the tax. If you do plan, you can avoid the tax. Sometimes you delay the tax, and sometimes you shift the tax to other beneficiaries that you'd like to see it, maybe to a charity. But again, taxation is voluntary. If they don't want to plan, they can pay the tax.
And I would guess you'd go along with other advisors here, start that plan as early as possible?
Oh, absolutely. The sooner you plan, the better the plan is going to work. Because in the case of my uncle, 57 years old, step out of the shower, he never expected to not be able to dry off.
Visit with Rich Roller from Bettendorf, Iowa. We'll leave him on that note. Thank you very much for sharing with us here at the gathering of Wealth Counsel in Chicago.